All right, folks, good afternoon. And as always, it's a pleasure to come before you each and every week. This is the Marketplace with the show Reset. I'm Anthony Weeks, executive producer. And on this segment number one, we focus on your health, wellness, and lifestyle. My colleagues who are the hosts and producers for this segment are both Linda Dorman. She's the host, and co-host is Yvette Wood. Linda is not with us this afternoon, so she's off today. She'll be back with us next week. And today it's just myself and Yvette on the program. And we do have, as usual, a lot to cover on the program on this segment regarding your health, wellness, and lifestyle. Yvette, how have you been?
I'm great, Anthony. How are you?
Good. Super busy. But I'm not complaining. Productive busy, not just busy bouncing all over the place. Very focused, very targeted, getting things done, and really excited about this. Every day I wake up feeling very passionate, a sense of purpose, doing the things that has to be done, and it's always good to see the fruits and the manifestation of those things that we are working on. So the weather is great here in America's Paradise, America's Caribbean, on the beautiful island of St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands. We are part of the United States, and you are in the Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia area. How are things where you are?
Here in the DMV, it is sunny outside, working its way up to another 90-degree day. We've been enjoying our weather and praying for a little rain. Want to keep the trees and the grass green, but it's doable here. Not as quite beautiful as it is over there in St. Croix, but hey, we're in the DMV. We're in the city of Washington, D.C., where we make everything happen, right?
Right. So did you guys experience anything with that hurricane that came in, but then kind of sort of became a storm? Did you guys get any effects of that?
Yes, we had quite a few rainy days, some thunderstorms at night, but then it dissipated and we're back to summer as usual, which is good.
Absolutely. So what's been happening? Not what's been happening. The question is, what hasn't happened? We just got so much in terms of headlines, and I see that Pfizer has now been approved in terms of their final formal approval of the COVID vaccine. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. There have been many people who were hesitant to get the vaccine, citing that the FDA had not formally approved any of the vaccines. So they've made their first full approval, which was the Pfizer vaccine. They were the first one to submit for full approval. We have Moderna waiting for their full approval, AstraZeneca. And today, J&J released a statement saying that their booster shot improves your chances almost 80% more than the regular shot. So they are recommending that you do get the booster of the J&J as well. But in the initial findings, J&J were always more effective against the variants than the Pfizer and the Moderna. And it is proving so with the booster as well. They are saying that with the vaccines, it is starting to wear off in like 60 to 90 days, which is why they're recommending the booster. J&J is saying that their vaccine lasts a lot longer than the initial 60 to 90 days, but the booster will probably carry you through for at least a year or two.
So in that vein, here is just some of the things, the exciting things that we're going to be doing over the next several months going forward. We've added a new initiative to the program. So each week we are going to do a featured Q&A, a subject matter topic that people are asking about, people want to know about. And so you'll be able to have the benefit of that Q&A. It's as a tip, as guidance, if you will. And for this week, the question is whether or not you can take the COVID vaccine and the flu shot at the same time. And so we'll go into some more details, but I just want to kind of put that out there as a teaser to let people know that we now have this new element to the program where we're going to feature every week a new subject matter, a new topic, where basically what people are talking about, and then folks like Yvette, who are the clinician of the team, is going to provide insight and response to that. And so Yvette, I look forward to what you have to say about that question, about being able to take COVID-19 vaccine as well as the flu shot as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we will definitely address that at a certain point in the broadcast.
Absolutely. So who do we have today? Who is our featured special guest that we are going to have a nice discourse or dialogue with?
Okay, as we've been discussing over the last year or so about the COVID virus and now the Delta variant, there's a certain population. We hear about those who are hospitalized. We hear about those who are in nursing homes or in rehabilitation centers who have been suffering from COVID. But we don't talk a lot about those who provide care for them. We don't talk about what happens when you get to the hospital and they simply have no room for your loved one, or you don't feel safe leaving them in a nursing home or rehabilitation center, and you're a caregiver and you're burnt out, or you're a caregiver and you have COVID yourself. And not even just COVID, you're taking care of someone and you're just at wit's end, or you're not sure which way to go. So today we have Alicia Underwood with us, who is the CEO and owner of Caregiver Assistance Network. Alicia has over 25 years of experience in helping caregivers with placements and providing caregivers. It's a huge decision when you make that choice that you need help to care for someone you love, or what do you do when you have nowhere to turn? Alicia can advise you and educate you on those decisions. And she's also going to share with us what's been happening with her business since COVID, what it's like to essentially be on the front line and try to place a worker in someone's home or at the hospital at their bedside in the midst of COVID, when they're afraid of contracting it, and you're taking care of someone who's also afraid of contracting it or who has contracted. Alicia's a wealth of information. She's also an ordained evangelist. She has 15 years of being a health advocate and involved in community health services. I'm gonna let her talk a lot about herself. So we welcome Alicia Underwood to the show. Welcome, Alicia.
Thank you, guys. How are you today?
Doing very well. It's really nice that you can be with us today and share with our television audience as well as our radio audience, and also on social media, your insight and information and knowledge you have on the subject matter. The first question I have, and this is just like a redundant question,
okay,
but I want to kind of hear it from you guys as to, could you draw a clear distinction between a caregiver and a caretaker, please?
Yes. Okay. So a caregiver is someone who can take care of a family member or a non-family member. They will usually be licensed with the state, whatever state you're in. Right now, we're in Maryland. And a caretaker is not much difference, but that's more of a family member who is not licensed, but still has some training in the activities of the daily life of the individual that they're taking care of.
So the difference between the two is you're licensed and unlicensed.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Did not know that. And I interchangeably I use it, and sometimes I'm always wondering whether or not I'm using it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a caregiver, mm-hmm. you're licensed, whether it's a family member or a non-family member. Mm-hmm. A caregiver is a licensed person.
Right.
A caretaker, it could be a family member or a non-family member, but they're not licensed in that area.
Exactly.
So how does one try and make a decision as to which one do they go with? I mean, beside the obvious of the license issue, why offer either or? Why not just say caregiver and that's it? Why do you offer either or?
Well, that's a great question, because most people think that it's the same. And it's a huge difference because if you're a licensed individual, you have had some type or some form of training in taking care of an individual that might have Alzheimer's. They might be with hospice, end of life decision making. You could have someone with Parkinson's. They cover a lot of that when you're licensed. When you're unlicensed, you're coming into a situation you haven't even been formally trained with hand washing. You haven't been formally trained with communicable diseases, OSHA, a lot of things like that. That's very, very important to know when you're dealing with the community, people's families, and also different cultures and ethnicities.
Yeah.
So it's very prudent. It's very important. Now, if you just want a companion and you're just going to be there, of course, to take someone to lunch, to dinner, or to give them a ride, that's more of the caretaker, a companion. You're not really offering any medication services or anything, wound care, or anything like that.
I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to speculate in terms of not trying to polarize the issue, but kind of put it in certain contexts.
Okay.
So am I correct to think that predominantly people of color are more, the likelihood of you'll find more caretakers than caregivers? Would that be an accurate statement?
Well, since I've been out here since I was 19, no, because what I have found is in all cultures, a lot of people may not have the money or the
exactly. That's what I was getting at, the economics of it.
Right, the money or the insurance. And even some of the wealthier individuals, which I deal with a lot of wealthy people, a lot of them also do not want to spend the money a lot of times on private care. So it's just a individual decision, but I wouldn't say it was totally economics. I used to think that too until I got involved in it. And it was amazing to me. Now, what I can tell you is, it's more of the poverty. You would be surprised, more of the poverty people, they will get together and they will start a page to get money to get this health care, or they'll get the less hours, because Medicaid, for example, you might need 7 hours. Medicaid might only give you 2.
Yeah, the only reason I brought it up is because when you look at healthcare, period, for folks that are within the minority demographic, people of color demographic, you have huge disparity of healthcare and lack of preventive maintenance of healthcare, which explains a lot of the chronic diseases that people have. And we saw in the earliest stage of the pandemic in 2020, where it seems like the people of color, minorities, were more susceptible to getting infected, being hospitalized, and dying from this. Now, Delta is letting everybody know that Delta don't care who you are.
Right.
Delta is an equal opportunity infector. Delta is going to infect you whether they don't care what your color, what your age is, and I just know that for me, when we talk about this subject matter of caretaking and caregiver, and one has to be licensed, one isn't, and looking at just the overall scope of things, that's why I said what I said, because I've said if you're going to have to pay for it, and typically, ordinarily, we can't afford it anyway.
Right.
I can't imagine us, doing the whole caregiving part, which you have to be licensed and hire a private licensed person to do that.
Well, one of the legalities, if you don't mind, Alicia, I'd like to point out, because Anthony was asking the difference between a caregiver and a caretaker. One of the legalities that I ran into with that as an employer is when you have a language barrier. And so you have a quote unquote caretaker interpreting for you. Now, you run into legal woes if you are telling the caretaker or getting health information from the caretaker and that information is not accurate. Because if you don't speak the language and the subject or the patient you're taking care of has a caretaker, a family member giving you information, you're in violation of HIPAA. Even though you're using them as an interpreter, it would only seem natural to use a family member as an interpreter. But we don't know the motives of that family member, of that caretaker. And so that is also a huge issue, Anthony, when making that decision between a caretaker and a caregiver. You have to consider the emotions and the motive behind using family member.
And I want to, Anthony, circle back around to even what you were saying about the disparity, because even with my company, I realized that. So we offered 1 hour to 2 hours of what I would like to call respite service that you didn't have to pay for. And we also offered education to the minority groups. And why I did that was because I found in the minority groups, they were not educated on the COVID shot itself, or the disease itself. And I noticed a lot of my more advanced clients who had money, they knew everything that was going on. They were very well versed in all of it. But a lot of the minorities, they had no clue. They were running around saying, I'm not getting a shot, I'm not dying, this and that. They didn't know anything. So, I held a lot of seminars because the education of this stuff is very important as well. A lot of the fear came from just not knowing. And a lot of people, even the ones who did know, they did not know that shot did not stop you from getting COVID. They thought they were invincible. So they got the shot, went all out without a mask, just, had a good old time and infected hundreds of other people. So you have to educate. And a lot of them that I even told, I was like, well, you still can get it. It's not going to be as severe. And they literally looked at me like, oh, no, that's not true. So education is very well a part of this whole issue, and we have to be super sensitive. That's another thing. We need sensitivity to all groups and all areas and all ethnicities with the pandemic, because if we're going to be on this earth together, and you're going to have to sit beside me or run into me or whatever, we all need to know what's really going on, the truth about it.
Yeah. We've been hearing so much about homes that have been taking care of our seniors during this pandemic, and they obviously have been the most vulnerable in terms of immunized, compromised folks in this whole exposure to COVID, and I can't imagine the dilemma of having to decide, for a family member, what's the best course of action, what's the best choice in terms of, I really can't afford, or I don't have the capacity to be that caregiver or caretaker. And so a lot of times they have to end up putting them in a home or something, a nursing home or some sort of healthcare facility for seniors. And for people that are watching this program and listening to this program on television and radio, I know that I can only imagine that, if we all have parents, right? Some of us, our parents are alive, or some of us, our parents are no longer with us. But at some point, we have to reckon with that. We got to reckon with the decision of making that choice of, do we keep our family members at home and provide the care that they need, whether it's a caregiver or a caretaker, or do we put them in a home? And my mom is 80 something years old, and she is not, she still lives, she still has all her faculties, mobility, and she still lives at home. And she's still, her mind is strong as ever. She's like an Energizer bunny. She doesn't stay still for a second. But most seniors they're not that fortunate. And so I wanted to kind of sort of put a personal, story to that, in terms of how I'm anticipating that decision we may have to make that decision one day, whether we keep her at home or have to put her in a home. But I can't imagine my mom talking about going to a home. So.
Well, most individuals like to stay independent. And I like to start off by saying you have several different groups of people. For example, what we try to do is encourage you to be home, because we all know that most our parents, they want to stay home, they want to stay where they're familiar. So we come out and assess the situation, meaning that you don't have to have somebody 8 hours a day, 7 hours a day. That's what the assessment process is. You call the agency, you call us, and we come out and see exactly where the need is. Do someone need help with ADLs, activities of daily life, getting dressed, bathing, brushing their teeth, putting their clothes on, getting dressed? Or do they just need help to doctor's appointments, visits? Do they just want a companion, somebody to take them out? Or do you just need an extra set of eyes? We also have sitters. Sitters is someone who you can be in a hospital, your mother, or at home, and they just come and sit with you for a couple of hours. That's what a caretaker is. No license, is even cheaper to even have a sitter. So to make that decision, you would need to get with a professional to come in and sit down with you and your mother, even ahead of time, and go over the options before anything, if any, might not happen. But if anything happened, maybe you will go over the options ahead of time, just like a person who have a living will, and say, Mom, what would you like to do? Would you like to have a few hours? Because people think that it's expensive to have home care, but I can tell you that I had one client who spent $500,000 in a facility. She could have had a nurse 24 hours a day living in for the money that she paid. Because when they tell you, when you come there, they're going to tell you, oh, it's going to be $2,000 a month. I'm telling you, that person will decline a little bit. If they need diapers, they need gloves, this and that. Next thing you know, she was paying $7,000 a month times 5 years. So get your information straight. Be educated on what you're going to do. Talk to me, talk to someone who's been there, done that. They know what they're doing before you really make a decision, because you're thinking, oh, I'll put them in a home and it's going to be easier, it's going to be cheaper. That's not always the case.
Absolutely. And then you don't know for sure what type of care your loved one is receiving in some of these facilities, because people do get burned out. Even though they are paid professionals, they get burned out, or they may have a bad day at work or a bad attitude. They lack the compassion and the empathy that they're supposed to have for their job. And so in nursing, we have this huge thing called aging in place, where we try to keep people in place as long as possible. And that place is at home.
Right.
So when you are at those crossroads and you get ready to make those decisions, I do encourage everyone under the sound of my voice to consider taking care of that person at home. And it doesn't have to be someone who's elderly. We have youth that are disabled,
Right.
that need care, that families want to put in facilities. And I always say, look at your options of home care.
How has, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, and to add to that, I'm glad you brought that up. Another thing, I employ right now, I have 20 individuals that's in a home facility. They're in a assisted living because they weren't not getting the care that they needed.
These are your client, you're talking
These
to
are
your
my
patients?
employees.
Oh, your
And so-
employees.
Yeah, my employees. So
Okay.
these people are at a facility that someone is already taking care of them at an assisted living. But the family member have come in and they hadn't eaten or they weren't dressed. So they hired my company. You know, I sent the nurse there, and they are there like 4 hours a day to make sure they're eating. And I just want to mention this one story because this really touched my heart, and maybe someone out there is thinking about
Please do.
They might be thinking about this. Well, I had during the pandemic, the height of the pandemic, it was a lady who grandmother had been in the nursing home for 2 years. When she got sick for 3 months, she went into the hospital. They wouldn't let her in. When she came back, she hadn't seen her in, my God, almost a year. She lost weight, and I'm telling you, this lady was dying. So when I sent the employee in, this is why it's very important sometimes to have a personal assistant, a caregiver, a nursing assistant, private duty nurse, whatever you want to call it, to come in, even if they're in a facility. He took an iPad in. I gave him an iPad. And with that iPad, that woman was able to see her grandmother. And I tell you, her grandmother began to get rapidly better. That's where this telehealth is going to come in too. Because when she laid her eyes on her granddaughter, I tell you, she didn't feel alone anymore. She had more feeling she had more oomph to live. She gained weight again. So I'm here to tell you honestly, this is not something that's people, oh, they just out, we out here making money. Or no, we're on the front lines trying to make sure your family will be safe and secure. We're here. My grandmother, Lord Jesus, my grandmother she died from Alzheimer's because she thought she ate all the time. That's what inspired me to really even go into the business. But I had someone with her 24 hours, and when they were there, she would eat. And I'm on the iPad, she would eat because she saw my face. Might have didn't recognize me completely, but she felt a sense of security. So what I'm saying to you is, I'm not one that's really, I already told my sons, I don't want to go into a nursing home, and I'm already prepared to have a nurse 24 hours if I need one, because that is what I want to do. And these people are fingerprinted, background check. You can put actually like this. I don't know if you guys can see it, this camera. I use this for my own mom, so I can see her all day long. What are you doing with her? You see what I'm saying? So I just wanted to share that with you guys. I thought it was just so beautiful. That lady cried on my shoulder for almost 2 hours. She was so happy to see her grandmother.
That's
what I mean?
Beautiful. And I don't know if you keyed in on that, Anthony, but she was saying that people who are already paying a facility has to in turn pay her company to go and provide the care that the company they're paying in the first place should be providing, but they're not. So now you're paying double.
Wow.
Well, if you just kept that person home and age in place,
Right.
You won't have to do that. But the facilities are not going to tell you that. They're going to tell you to place your loved one here. Yes, we can provide the care. And you do that, but then you have to hire a caregiver from an external company to come and complement the care you're already paying for. So, wow, what a decision. That's a decision you have to make with much wisdom and insight.
And also, you have to have sensitivity. I'm going to keep saying sensitivity because just because, say, Mrs. Brown was a school teacher, she wore her hair a certain way, her little lipstick, these people are in a nursing home. They are not trying to do your hair. They're not trying to make your face. You are still giving these people a form of dignity because the community, just because you got old, you're still the same person. You just aged.
Yes.
So you still want your dignity. You still want to, do the things that you used to do. We also supply, we provide you with your hair. We do nails, we do everything. And I'm licensed to do it. So it's way more to just a caregiver because, and I'm going to say this, and I hope you don't mind. Some people say, oh, they're just butt wipes. That's what we've been called. But we're keeping families from falling. We're keeping you from dying. We're keeping you healthy and with not a lot of pay. But we want your family to be healthy. And that's what this program is about as well, because we want to give you the inside information to keep your family safe and in dignity on a consistent basis.
I know of, well, let me not say it with such certainty, but I have heard disturbing information where family members would drop off their loved one to the hospital because at that point they were ill, right? They had some sort of illness, but never came back to take them out of the hospital. They just left them there.
Right.
And this family member just stayed in this hospital indefinitely because no one came back and I don't want to use the word claim, but no one came back and got them. And so is that, like I said, I'm not saying that's with all certainty. I'm saying, is that normal? Is there any credibility to that? Am I off base with that?
No, that has actually happened. Go ahead, Lavette.
Oh, no, I was going to say that happens more than you think. And it's not just the elderly. I want to drive that home. It's not just the elderly that need caregivers. I remember working in a facility and a husband of the 40 years age bracket dropped his wife off who had a stroke and he never came back. And like 2 months after she was there, divorce papers came. He said, I didn't sign up for this and I'm not doing it. I'm not taking care of her. So
wow.
happen more than you know.
Wow.
And the elderly, we hear about them dropping babies off at hospitals, that safe harbor program. But what they don't push is the amount of elders that are dropped off, or spouses that are dropped off. I mean, you hear about elder abuse, because that is a form of abuse. And
Absolutely.
because even though they drop them off, they'll still collect their checks. And that's a whole nother show. Don't get me on that
Oh
soapbox.
Lord, that's so. Oh my God, you're right.
That is elder abuse. I can go all day on that, and it's just
we will have plenty
Oh,
opportunities to address some of these issues. So, so when someone has when they're confronted with having to provide care to a loved one, is it likely that someone dropping someone off at a hospital because they don't want to keep them at home, they don't have the capacity or the ability to take care of them at home, certainly they don't have the resource to put them in a home, and so what they do is the third option is just drop them off at a hospital and walk away and keep them there?
Sometimes they will drop them off at a hospital, and God forbid, I've seen situations where they just left them in the home alone, and when you got there, they were just in a bed of feces, a bed of everything, and we would have to get a social worker out there immediately from the Department of Social Service, because I'm connected with them now, and what they would do is find a facility for them and then get them on Medicaid, this and that, because they can't just leave them there. So yes, that has happened, and people have done that to their own parents. And just to, further what you're saying, that is, it's not just elderly. You have people who have MS at 30 years old, 16-year-olds. We have, it's not just the elderly. The population mostly is elderly that I deal with, because a lot of times when they're kids, they have a parent that's staying home, but they also have people who will leave a child there or their spouse there right in the house. Recently I went up to Thermont. I won't say their name, but I had somebody anonymously give me an email and said, I know a lady who needs a nurse, but she put it in a way like she just needs a nurse. Can you go by there? So when I got there, I was shocked. It was this lady just had been in this bed for days, and it was just a bed of urine, a bed of feces. And she had just, I said, how long have you been here? Because she had MS, so she couldn't move. She's like 35. And I had to get the social worker, and it was 2 dogs there as well who had bowel movement all over the house. I'm just telling you, these things are real. These things are out here. So, this is, as a nurse, and you as well, as a provider, a person who's providing care for the community, it's not an easy thing to do, but you have to have sensitivity again, and you have to have love and compassion for your fellow man. Okay.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back on the other side, what I'd like to do is, because we have about 20 minutes left, how has the pandemic changed the caregiving space, and how has technology changed caregiving? I want to kind of hear so people understand the role and how technology is, if you will, filling the gap or helping to mitigate some of the problems that you addressed on the on this show. We'll be right back after this message.
Thanks.
Small business is a part of all of us each and every day. It's where we eat, it's where we shop, it's where we go to meet our friends and colleagues. In the wake of COVID-19, our small business community desperately needs our help. We must do our part to help our local communities to once again thrive. We must focus our attention on the small businesses that are the fabric of our great nation. SureUp is a network of small business owners, their employees, and local consumers all working in unison to support each other. By creating incentives for consumers to think local before considering regional and national providers to fulfill their needs, we create local job opportunities and rebuild our communities. In addition, through AI-driven tools and machine learning, in just 5 minutes a day, SureUp assists business owners in improving their social media presence, which enhances their visibility among consumers and levels the playing field so that local businesses can better compete with large, name-brand online competitors. When local businesses leverage the SureUp platform, full-time and part-time employees, whether W-2 or 1099, are rewarded with a variety of voluntary perks and member benefit options. These include discounts on the things people do every day, access to low-cost, subscription-based telehealth and teletherapy, discounted prescription drug plans, connection to exclusive Prosper resources, and so much more. All for less than the cost of a cup of coffee each day. The Jumpstart Marketplace is here to support the health and wellness of individual employees, as well as the health of businesses in the local communities in which we live and work. We're all in this together, so join us as we reinvigorate our local community and improve the physical and financial health of working America.
Show Reset. I'm Anthony Weeks, and joined by my colleague Yvette Wood, and our special guest is Alicia Underwood. She is a strong healthcare community advocate, and she's the owner of. I don't want to cannibalize your jack.
So my business name is Caregivers Assistance Home Care, and we're in Maryland, Montgomery County, Rockville, Frederick, and our website is caregiversnetwork.net.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. All right. So we have about maybe less than 15 minutes left on the program. And so before we went to the break, we talked about how has the pandemic changed the dynamic of caregiving, and how technology has also, going forward in the future, how is technology going to change the space of caregiving as well, or caretaking and caregiving?
Absolutely. I know one of the biggest things during the pandemic for people who did have loved ones in nursing homes and rehabilitation centers was they were not allowed to see them, and they were not allowed to visit. Imagine going 1 year without seeing your mom or your dad and have no clue what's going on inside of that center. You don't know how many employees were infected with COVID, how they were treating your loved one, whether your loved one had really contracted COVID or was receiving proper care. You were basically cut off for them outside of a phone call. And I look at people like Alicia who provide a service where you could have kept mom or dad or brother or sister at home and had your eyes on them. It seems so much better to me than having your loved one in a facility and you had no idea what was going on with them. Alicia, can you help us understand how you were able to help during the pandemic?
Well, during the pandemic, one of the ways, well, it was several ways, but one of the most important things was to understand how to do your hand washing, your mask, and follow all the guidelines that the CDC provided. But one of the ways we're helping, like I was mentioning earlier, was with telehealth. I don't know if a lot of people are familiar with telehealth. Telehealth is not just where you see a doctor through the scope of your phone or the scope of Zoom, but we also were able to do interviews with family members through Zoom, set up contracts through Zoom, send our nurses, aides in who were COVID tested weekly, and use iPads and things of that nature. So when people didn't see their loved ones for a year, 6 months, they could do it that way. And then it wasn't easy though, because you not only had to have a COVID test, but then when the vaccination came out, I required you to have the vaccination. It's not a requirement yet, but I think it will be. But like I said, it was to the people that we serve, they were very grateful to use phone devices or whatever they had to see their loved ones, to make sure they were okay, because you could call and they would say they were okay. Some of them had actually died and they didn't know for weeks that their family member had left this earth. So,
Right.
So Yvette, I'm gonna seeing that we're tight on time here. I'm gonna provide two. So earlier we said we had today's featured question. You know, whether someone can take the COVID-19 vaccine and the flu shot at the same time.
Correct.
And tying that in, obviously that's the featured question for today. We have SETI has a healthcare marketplace. We have a healthcare market, a digital healthcare marketplace, and it's called Telehealth. And the question that we're presenting today, you're able to go to Telehealth and read for yourself the information, the article that will provide you answers to that question. But how do you see, Yvette, in terms of what we have in terms as a resource, as a tool, as an asset to work with the likes of Alicia Underwood and the services she provide? How do you see us or folks like her, you know, being able to leverage and utilize the Telehealth platform?
Certainly, Anthony. I think iTelehealth is a wonderful wealth of information. I call it the one-stop shop. You can log on to iTelehealth and you can find a physician and have a consultation with the physician. You can find me as a nurse and have a consultation with the nurse. The pharmacy is there. If you need personal protective equipment, you can get your PPE. You can get referrals to someone like Alicia, who can help you with your decision making as far as whether you want to be a caretaker or you want to hire a caregiver. Telehealth can steer you in the direction of medical devices, rather than try to surf the net and go through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages looking for stuff. You can go to one place, and that is, like the letter I, telehealth.us, and get all the information that you need right there. And especially at a time like this with the pandemic, it is, we have the most up-to-date information for you on the subjects that we talk about. And we even go back to the beginning of COVID to give you an understanding of the chain of efficacy up until today with the Delta variant.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you, Alicia, if you've seen the iTelehealth marketplace.
It's new to me, and I'm so interested in it.
Yeah. And so as Yvette mentioned, it's really when you talk about the delivery of how do you deliver care, right?
Right.
And the information and the education behind it, that what iTelehealth is as a digital platform, it's digitizing the healthcare space, right? And creating a chain of efficacy steps that you take from A to Z in order to deliver that care. Do you think, based on what Yvette described, how do you see a company like yours being able to integrate the iTelehealth platform?
Well, I see a company like mine being able to help integrate because, like you said, the education of it. When you get on there, it's a one-stop situation. You're not surfing the internet for all these different agencies. You're not surfing the internet for all the different answers about Alzheimer's, about hospice, about end of life. It's a one-stop shop, like you said. So when you come on there and you say, pull me up, and you can send me all the questions, you can actually call me on the phone versus talking to 100 people about one question,
Mhm.
you know, and get all the answers that you need, and with love and care and concern. Because everybody that's in this business is not really caring. And I can honestly say I love people, I love helping individuals, and that's what I do. And I've dedicated my life to doing that.
Yeah, we launched the iTelehealth during the early stage of the pandemic.
Wow.
It was in beta mode, and obviously, it was the wild wild west. In 2020, where stuff was just you know happening so fast, and it was just a lot of stuff coming at you. And so we plan to do if you will, a tutorial, an overview
Mm.
of telehealth, and so people know what that is, because this is, my organization as a nonprofit, macroeconomic and public policy think tank. We do research and development, looking at the space of existing and or non-existent, to see how we can improve, a particular product, the delivery of product or services in the marketplace. And so the iTelehealth is a platform where it makes it a lot easier
Mm-hmm.
to put it at your fingertip to help guide you to the process. So when we have this show, so the idea is, when we end this program, they now have a place where they can go and revisit the discussion we had and the information and advice that you've given, coming from you, the experts, the licensed experts, the frontline folks, the clinicians, on what their options are. And so I just wanted to kind of sort of put it out there a little bit, because we're going to really, this is important, because the fact of the matter is, healthcare right now is around $3 trillion in America, but they're saying by 2025 is going to go to like $6 trillion. And so healthcare is going to become even more problematic and more expensive. And so we got to create an environment and a process that help people to be better informed, educated, knowledgeable, to be able to make sound decision and the best available resources to them.
Absolutely. And, I'm so excited, Alicia, for you to go to the iTelehealth website and check it out. You can just imagine what it's like to be at home and you're not feeling well, and you can just have a doctor at your fingertips and he prescribes a prescription, and you can also order that on there and have it delivered to your house, and you never have to leave your bed. So talk about convenience. So that's iTelehealth for you.
Absolutely. Well, we did start we did start late, and so unfortunately, we're going to have to end a little early, because we have the second segment coming up in a couple of minutes. So if we can kind of do some final thoughts, closing thoughts, Yvette, how would you like to close out?
I will close out by saying the answer is no. You cannot take the COVID vaccine and the flu shot together. There must be a space, and there's a whole lot of reasons for that. That doesn't mean that won't change in the future, but as of now, when you go to get your vaccine, they will ask you if you've had your flu shot and how far away was your flu shot from receiving your COVID vaccine, because they're still examining whether there will be an interaction between the two. I will also say to you that if you are a caretaker at home and you're getting burnt out and you're not sure what to do, or you're in that decision-making mode of whether you want to be a caretaker or whether you need a caregiver, I strongly urge you to give Alicia Underwood a call and just talk with her about your situation, and she can help you understand what your options are. It is a lot to being a caretaker, and it can be exhausting. And she does provide respite care. Maybe you are a caretaker and you just need a weekend away or a couple of hours to go get your hair done or your nails done. There's more than one way to utilize a professional caregiver. So I really urge you to provide that care. Just because you are hiring someone doesn't mean you don't love your mom or your dad. It just simply means you need help and you need someone to come and strengthen your hand. And that's what Alicia Underwood does for you. So
Alicia,
thank you so much.
Thank you, Alicia. And do you want to provide some contact information once again before we go?
Yes, I will just say caregivers assistance, 443-881-5720. And I have to praise you guys, because Anthony, you are actually on the front line because you're bringing us in. And please,
Me?
Yes,
Me?
yes.
No, I'm not.
This is the front line because, see, I really mean that because you are bringing our telehealth is the way of the future. It's the way of the future because everybody's contactless. Nobody wants to be, and this was even before the pandemic. We were already going on that wave. So I just want to say thank you to Yvette so much and to you because you are helping bring the front line to the front and get the information that we need to stay healthy and alive. That's very important. That's all I want to say.
All right. On that note, I want to thank you so much, guys, for today's program. This was the Marketplace Reset Show, segment number 1 on our health, wellness, and lifestyle. I want to thank you, Yvette, and I want to thank you, Alicia, for the program. Until next week, stay safe and have a productive day.
Thank you.
Bye.